Welcome to our program, Astronomy for Everyone. With me here in the studio for this month's show is Tom Trusock from the Cloudy Nights website. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Don. I'm glad to be here.
Well, before we get into talking about Cloudy Nights, which we'll do a little bit later in the show, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, a little personal background?
Sure. Well, I guess we'll start now. We'll work backwards a little bit. I'm 46 years old. I am currently a teacher of mathematics, computer science, and astronomy for Bad Axe Public Schools up in the Thumb, which I live in that area. It's a nice, dark area. It's a good place to be an astronomer. I have had a lifelong interest in astronomy. One of my earliest memories was my father, who was not an astronomer, hauling me around to different places around Battle Creek because he had read in the paper, of course there was no internet in those days, he had read in the paper that there was going to be a star party or a meeting of amateur astronomers at this school on this night or over here at this night. And we went to at least 3 or 4 different star parties where no one ever showed up. And we were the only ones there waiting on it. So we did some other things, like I got my astronomy merit badge when I was a kid. And, I took a couple of summer programs that had to do with astronomy, but then I kind of put it aside for a while, and I went away and went to college, and then after I got out of college, I got my first telescope. Boy, that was a long time ago now, I guess. But it's a lifelong hobby. It's something that stuck with me, and something that means a lot to me, and it means a lot that, we do outreach and we get it out to kids, too. So.
Very important, and that's part of what our program is about here on Astronomy for Everyone. Now, I understand you're also part of the Astronomy Foundation. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
That's correct. The Astronomy Foundation is a nonprofit. What we want to do is, their main mission is outreach. Their goal is to bring astronomy into public awareness, help groups, help get observing groups started, help astronomy education, things like that. It is a nationwide group. It's a consortium of publishers, manufacturers, and just average, everyday people. Karen Jennings is I believe, the current president, but there's also there's several different corporations which are involved with it. I believe Celestron is involved. I know Stellar View Telescopes is involved. I know Astronomy Magazine, Dave Eicher is involved with it.
Yes.
And I am as of right now, anyway, the chair of the Committee for Education. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to our last meeting, so I don't know if I got voted out yet or not. But they haven't told me I'm fired, so I guess I'm still good.
Still have a job there, yep.
I think so.
All right, well, that's interesting. I'm glad we were able to bring that point to our viewers who may not have been aware of the foundation. Now, you talked a little bit about your dad taking you to star parties. But what inspired you to enter the profession that you're in now, which is teaching, and astronomy? Are they similar, or were there different events for that?
The education is it's a little different than the astronomy. The astronomy comes from a basic sense of wonder. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't looked at the night sky on a clear night and started to let their mind wander and think, what's up there? If you take a look at something like, say, the Andromeda Galaxy, 2 point, whatever your current average is, when I was young it was 2.2, then I believe it's now 2.4 million light years.
Yes.
That light left 2.4 million light years. Those photons that are hitting your eyes that night are 2.4 million years ago, and if you had a telescope and could zoom in on the galaxy, you'd see what was happening 2.4 million years ago. I don't think there's anybody who is human, who has the least capacity for intelligence, emotion, and wonder, can look at the night sky, can look at the rings of Saturn, can look at a galaxy or a star cluster and be unmoved by it. I've never met anyone. So, that's always had a sense of wonder for me from the time I was a little kid. Education, I like kids. Train them young in the ways that they should go, and as they get older they won't stray from it, I believe is the quote. Kids are our future. I really believe that. It's something that you hear a lot of educators say, and you really begin to wonder how much people believe it. But they really are, and they're important. And you know, they're going to be the ones who are going to be running the nursing homes when you and I are looking for one.
Exactly. Yes.
So I want the future of the world, you know, to be as good as it possibly can. So it's a long, long story about how I wound up in education. I was originally an engineering major,
Okay.
but I decided I didn't want to work with things. I wanted to work with people.
People.
Yeah.
Very good.
So.
Well, in the past, have there been any projects or programs that you've worked on that stand out or you were especially proud of?
Well, there's been a few. Cloudy Nights, which we're going to talk about in the second half, is probably the biggest. I'm in a very isolated area. I have worked with a lot of the kids. I have started a couple of youth groups for astronomy. Unfortunately, that's always a struggle with the kids because they're all gung-ho to get started, but you really have to make them realize that if it's going to last, they have to be willing to take ownership of it. And that's a tough jump to try and do with a lot of kids. So I've tried local astronomy clubs many times. The school has one. We'll be starting it up again this fall. I hope it takes off. I hope I can find some young man or woman to step into the roles of leadership that the club needs, and you know, help it succeed. The biggest one, though, you know, you don't want to talk about till after the break.
Yeah, the Cloudy
So
Nights.
yeah, we'll kind of go off on that. But I have. Boy, Don, just about everything's associated with that. You know, I could tell you about the NEAF visits. I could tell you about, you know, the astronauts we've interviewed with. Story Musgrave, we sat around at a table one night after the conference, and there were about 8 or 10 of us, and we just all had beers, and he was talking about, you know, his work on the Hubble telescope. I could tell you about observing with Barbara Wilson. She's an astronomer with the University of Texas, out at the Okie-Tex star party and seeing the neutron star that hit the you know, that formed the Guitar Nebula. That's something that probably about 5 people have actually seen with their naked eye. You know, I guess that's a wide open question. I'm not sure
Okay.
where you
well,
want
it
to go
sounds
with
like
that.
we can hit a bit more on that in the second half of the program. But I always like to talk to our guests to find out, you know, their inspiration, and that inspiration carrying them to something that they've worked on that they're especially proud of. Yes?
Well, let me clarify something a bit here. When I said saw the neutron star, that wasn't technically correct. What we saw was the bow shock created by the neutron star as it moved through a gas area.
Ah, okay.
So, you know, it's because I'm sure there was going to be somebody out there who's going, wait a minute, you can't see a neutron star. Yeah, and you're right. You're
Yes.
right. So,
That's very true. That's very true. Well, it sounds like we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about in the second part of our program, which we'll get to in just a minute. After this short break, we'll be back with more of our conversation with our guest, Tom Trusock. If you would like to get more information, you can visit our website. You can see that down at the bottom of your screen. And coming up next is Stephen Whitty with Term of the Month.
The term of the month for September 2014 is Foucault pendulum. I recently heard a spurious scientific-sounding argument that the Earth doesn't rotate. This has been an idea, the Earth rotates, this has been an idea since Copernicus, at least. The claim was that people believe that because clouds move, that's what makes them believe that the Earth rotates. This doesn't make any sense either. The air moves with the ground for the most part, but the sun heats it unevenly, and that's why the air and therefore the clouds move. The first really easy experiment that demonstrates that the Earth rotates was, in fact, the Foucault pendulum. And a Foucault pendulum is basically a string attached to the ceiling, and at the bottom you hang a big rock. So you let it be stable in the center, and then you sort of pull it to one side and you let it go. The pendulum swings back and forth, and you might expect it to swing back and forth in a straight line forever. But if you watch it for just a few minutes, you'll notice that the line that the pendulum swings back and forth on rotates a little bit. And by the end of the day, you can see that it has rotated all the way around. That is, in 24 hours it goes, the whole line goes all the way around. And it does this because the Earth rotates. So it's moving really pretty much in the same direction, but the Earth rotates underneath it, giving you the motion that you see. Now, there are museums all over the world that have Foucault pendulums, and Foucault himself being French, Paris has one that is 220 feet long. It's really tall. The smallest I was able to find is 26 feet long, and it has a 22-pound weight at the bottom. Now, if you have a house that has 2 stories and a basement, and you cut a hole in the first floor and in the second floor, and you attach the string to the ceiling of the second floor, and you have the string go all the way into the basement, you might make 26 feet, something like that. You attach a weight to it, and you can have your own Foucault pendulum. And this would be a lot of fun, but of course, a lot of fun after you ask your mom if it's okay to cut holes in your floors. The term of the month for September is Foucault pendulum.
Welcome back to our program. With me here in studio for this month's show is Tom Trusock from the Cloudy Nights website. Now, Tom, in the first part of the show, we were talking about several things, and we kept getting into cloudy nights, which is great, but so now we're going to get into it full force. So what can you tell our viewers about cloudy nights?
Well, if there's anybody out there who is unfamiliar with cloudy nights, let me start off by saying that it is an equipment review website and an astronomy forum. And originally it was just an equipment review website. It was started around 2000 by a gentleman named Alistair St. Clair, who's from the Chicago region. And I came on board when Alistair felt the site was getting too big for one person to handle. So for many years it was just him and I. And I started up the forums, and the forums were always kind of my special piece because unlike you, who has access to a wonderful local club with 150 members, and there are various clubs in the Detroit area, I'm from a really rural location, and the nearest astronomer that I knew about happened to live about 70 miles away from me. So I had nobody to show me how to collimate a telescope. I had nobody to help me figure out how to find these targets in the night sky. As a matter of fact, I got my first telescope in the spring, and I spent the entire spring looking for galaxies. And I could not find a galaxy, I thought, anywhere. I could see these little things that looked like they weren't in focus, but those weren't galaxies.
Those little faint
those weren't galaxies. And then finally, it wasn't until Andromeda came up in the fall that I realized that what I was seeing, you know, in the spring was galaxies. And all of these things can be eased. The pain of entrance into astronomy can be eased if you have a local club.
That mentorship of the
correct,
yes.
Correct. So how do you provide that to somebody who's in the sticks? You know, because there are a lot of us who are in the sticks. Well, online is the option. There were some groups, you know, that have run alongside the same time, and there are some that were around earlier. If you were around in the early days of the internets, you remember the Astro Amateur Internet News Group. That was unmoderated, which means that anybody could post anything, whether it was about astronomy or not, whether it was a crackpot or the greatest thing ever written, and it would be allowed to stay. And a lot of things, there were a lot of trolls on there, people who just got, you know, had fun by knocking other people down. And there was a lot of good to Astro Amateur, but there was a lot of bad. And I kind of said to myself, well, you know, we need to have something that emphasizes the good and does away with the bad. So that led to the creation of the Cloudy Nights forums. There are moderated forums. We try and keep things as on topic as possible, but we also try to let, you know, users say what they want to say and have a good time and enjoy the board, because that's what the board's about. The board's about the users. It's the users that create the content, especially now that we're into Web 2.0, where the entire focus of the internet is user-created content. So you know, we started off with, when we opened those boards, we had probably about, we didn't know what was going to happen. We probably had maybe, you know, 10 or 15 of us that were on the boards that were all really and ready to go, and we didn't know if anybody was going to sign up or not. And, you know, here we are about 15 years later, 14, 15 years later, and as of this morning, we had some 77,000 and change users on board. And
that's fantastic.
When I looked at it this morning, there were 116 in the approval queue. So, you know, it's really taken off. It's been quite the experience. It's a good experience and it's a bad experience because I can't. In the easy days, it was nice. Or in the early days, it was easy to be consistent with moderation and keep the board flowing and keep everybody happy, because, you know, if you work with people, you know, it's easy to keep one person happy. Two people's a little harder. Three people gets, you know, quite a bit harder. By the time you get to 77,000 people, you're just not going to do it anymore. I used to handpick all the mods and the admins, and you know, it just got to a point where I can't do that anymore. We sold the website, Alistair and I. Actually, Alistair sold the website a few years back to Astronomics, and they have run it in a very, very hands-off fashion. And just today, it's interesting that we're filming this today, because just this last weekend, we went live with the newest iteration of the website. Now, I know this is going to come out and air a month from now. Hopefully by this point we have all of our issues worked out, but we're still trying to transfer posts over, and we're still trying to, you know, import pictures and threads and personal messages and all that stuff. We're still trying to convert all that. We have two main databases. One is stuff that we had archived up to, I want to say, probably about 2009, 2010, and then the live database consists of that going forward. I know the live database alone had over 6 million posts on it, so it's taken a long time, and we've let people in at this point, and they're on, but the site is really, really slow. But it shows a lot of promise, and I really can't wait to see where we're going to go from here.
So, in other words, hopefully within about a month's time, then these various issues will be resolved, and
by the time this airs, hopefully everything will be running smooth as glass. We did try to upgrade earlier this year, around the turn of the year actually, and that did not go well. And the users told us very loudly and very clearly that they didn't like it and they weren't happy with it. And we ran into a lot of hidden fees that we had not anticipated, and so we backed off that one, back to the old form of software, which ironically is the original software, just heavily tweaked, that we've been running all these years. And it's amazing that creaky jalopy of software managed to get us this far.
With the load that you've got on the site now.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so. But yeah, we are the largest astronomy-based forum in existence. So with that many users. There were talks at one point, one of the major magazines, I won't say who, but one of the companies that purchased one of the major magazines was looking at acquiring us. But the gentleman who owns it didn't want to sell to them because he wanted it to be about the amateurs, for the amateurs, and you know, he wanted it to be about astronomy. He didn't want it to be about making money. So that's Mike Beeler.
All right.
He's a great guy.
terrific. Well, we're glad that something like this is going to stay within the realm of us amateur astronomers.
Right, because everybody needs some place they can go and ask a question and be treated nice, you know, and that's the cadre of the website. That's what we want.
I've been on websites at some that you can see the conversations start to degenerate into personal attacks.
Yeah, we don't allow that too much.
Yeah, I mean, there can be a difference of opinion, of course, and that's what you want to foster. But you want it done civilly.
Exactly, because that's where growth is. So, but yeah, that's been one of the primary goals of the website all along, and I think we've succeeded. I can't believe I've been associated with this for so long, and I can't believe it grew from such modest beginnings into what it is today either.
Where do you see it going in the next few years?
Well,
looking ahead.
If the past is any indication, we'll probably be on this software package for the next 15 years. And then when we move to the computers that are all implanted in our heads, that's a joke. It's hard telling. You know, the Web 2.0 is all about user-generated content. I mean, you know, sites like Tumblr and Facebook. we're taking steps to ensure that Cloudy Nights will be one of those sites, that it will be more and more about user-generated content. It'll be easier for our users to generate content. We're looking at, allowing them to host their own blogs, to allow, like the Ford Area Club. If you guys want to have a conversational place up there, if you don't have a website that supports it already, the Ford Area Club can set that up. We're looking at things like that. Whatever we can do to promote the growth of astronomy, to promote outreach, that's what we want to do. Because this hobby, if we don't do that, it's going to die out.
That's the thing that concerns me. I know when I go to our own club meetings, I look around and I see a lot of people that look like me, gray.
Right.
And we're not seeing the younger people in what we feel are sufficient quantities to help carry this hobby forward in the future.
That's one of the reasons why I so enjoy teaching my high school astronomy class, because I get a ton of kids in there who are very interested in it. And the great thing about astronomy is if you pick it up as a hobby, it's a lifelong hobby. It's not like racquetball. It's not like, playing football or, something physical where you get to a point where you just can't do it anymore. They'll probably find me, hopefully someday, years from now, they'll probably find me some morning, had a heart attack when I was 95 years old while I was looking at a comet.
Sitting in the observatory.
Right, I can't think of a better way to go.
There you go.
It's kind of morbid, but hey, that's a lifelong hobby is my point. So.
I did want to have you talk for a moment about the book that you brought with you.
One of the things that I've been very lucky to be able to do over the last few years is take a look at some new products before they hit, the standard shelves. And this is one of them. This is written by a friend of mine from Germany, Roland Stoyan, and it was co-written with Stephen Schurig. And I probably shouldn't really say written. What it is it's a new deep sky atlas. Okay. And I realize that's not going to be incredibly exciting to most folks, but there is a catch to this. Ronald wrote a piece of software called Ion Telescope, and the whole kicker to this software was the software is designed to show you what you would see at the eyepiece of a given scope. And software is great, but there's a bunch of us who observe in places that electricity isn't really readily available.
Exactly.
So we need something printed. So he came up with the idea that they could take this information, they could collate it, they could do a printed atlas with it. And the kicker is they have different varying degrees of brightness.
Plus you got Deneb, so that gives you a reference point.
Varying degrees of visibility. If something's very dark on the atlas, it's very bright in the sky. If it's very faint on the atlas, it's very faint in the sky. Okay. So they have a gauge there. They start with a 4-inch scope and they work their way down to 12 inches and up.
So they have it set for varying sizes of scope for various brightnesses.
Correct. Correct.
Well, I would really like to thank our guest for being with us here tonight. Tom, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Don. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. If you have any questions that you would like to send to us to get answered here on the program, please send us an email. You can see that down at the bottom of your screen. And at the end of this month, don't forget Astronomy at the Beach, coming up September 26th and 27th at Kensington Metro Parks, Maple Beach. Check the Metro Parks website for more information. Coming up next with Stephen Whitty is What's Up in the Night Sky for September.
What's up in the night sky for September 2014? Sunrise ranges from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. as the month progresses. Sunset ranges from 7:40 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. So the days are getting shorter, and they're getting shorter faster than they were in August. The moons in September start with the first quarter on September 2nd. Full moon is September 10th, third quarter is September 15th, and new moon is September 23rd. Straight overhead this month are the three constellations Cygnus, Lyra, and Hercules. These are all bright constellations overhead at about 10 p.m. most of the month. Mercury in Virgo sets between 8:47 to 7:49 p.m. It is best on the 21st at about 7:45 p.m. You can kind of see a little arc going from Mercury down to the trees on the right, and that is the path of Mercury, and this is the point pretty much at which Mercury is farthest from the sun and therefore easiest to see. Saturn is in Libra, and it sets at about 10 p.m. and is best around 9 p.m., about an hour after sunset. We lose it by November. Mars is in Virgo, and it sets at 10:30 p.m. in September and is also best at 9 p.m. for the same reason. Mars moves faster than Saturn does by quite a bit, and so we don't lose it until June 2015. The Earth doesn't catch up with it. Now, Mars is near Antares, which is, the name means rival of Mars, by the end of September. And that's just in time for Astronomy at the Beach. Don't miss Astronomy at the Beach. It's on the 26th and 27th of September, Friday and Saturday, at Kensington Metro Park. It's an awesome event. Everybody's going to be there. Neptune is in Aquarius and is up all night. Just having had an opposition in August, it is highest more or less at midnight. Uranus is in Pisces and rises at 8:30 and is best around 3 a.m. That's when it's highest in the sky. Jupiter is in Cancer, which has no bright stars. So the bright thing in Cancer in September is Jupiter. Jupiter is coming out from where it was behind the sun in July. It rises at 4 a.m. and is best around 6 a.m. And that is what is up in the night sky for September 2014. Remember to keep looking up, because that's the greatest show that you can see on Earth.